All right, welcome everyone. Welcome to How to Be a Superhero, the show. I am Michael Tomano, author of How to Be a Superhero, the book. And today I have EJ Nieves. Thank you so much for joining me today. And hopefully I said your last name correctly.
Yeah, no, it's interesting. Usually, not well. It's interesting. I have people that will ask me how to pronounce it before, and they'll say it, and then I have people that'll just go for it. And you went for it, and you said it right. So thank you so much, because a lot of people say it wrong.
I'm sure. My last name certainly has had its variations.
Oh yeah, oh yeah.
I think every teacher had, and for some reason it was mostly my math teachers had a different variation of it. But so I'm so excited to have you today. And so would you like to give us a little bit of your background and what you do?
Yeah. So EJ Nieves. My artist name is Ness. It's kind of my artist name and also the name of my studio and my studio and my gallery. So Ness stands for No Eye Has Seen. It comes from the scripture in the Bible from 1 Corinthians 2:9. For no eye has seen, no ear has heard, no mind has imagined what God has prepared for those that love Him. And so that's a cornerstone of my work of what I do. With the business, I've run into a lot of challenges, and it's really cool to be able to call upon God and to pray, and to really, have Him be the center and the focus of and the driving force of what I do. But no, I'm 37 years old. Let's see, I'm 37 years old. I'm Puerto Rican. My dad was in the military, so I was like a military brat, and we traveled all over the world, pretty much Guam, Philippines, China, and then finally landed in Florida when I was in third grade. So a lot of traveling when I was a baby until about second grade. And then we landed in the Panhandle of Florida, where my dad was stationed in Eglin and Herbert Field. So that's where I grew up. Fast forward, I've been drawing since I was in like third grade. So you figure I'm 37 years old. Art has been a part of me since, like elementary school, and really trying to understand my role and what, as a creative, who I am. And then so I drew the whole time, drawing. I was the editorial artist for my high school newspaper. I did a lot of the designs for the Spirit t-shirts at my high school. And so fast forward a little bit more into college, that's when I was introduced to painting, and I fell in love with it. I was going for graphic design at the University of Central Florida. I ended up getting my BFA, my Bachelor's of Fine Arts in graphic design, but my last semester, I accidentally enrolled in a 4,000 level painting class. And so here I am, somebody that's never painted before like that. And I am around a lot of amazing creative people that were just painting the most extraordinary things from abstract to realism. And it just opened up my mind and heart to painting and the physicality of, moving color around a surface, right? And so that was me in college, and I graduated with a graphic design degree. Couldn't find a job. I was in Orlando, home of Mickey Mouse, and so it was super, super competitive trying to get a career going with art. I had a degree in graphic design, so I tried to become a graphic designer, couldn't do that. I did a lot of freelancing, but then I ultimately realized that I didn't like the graphic designer client aspect of things, even when I was even when was freelancing. And then I thought to myself, man, I could only imagine working for a firm and having a boss telling me what to do and what to create and giving me bulleted points of what needed to be created. That would be a nightmare for me. I know there's tons of people that do it, and I think that's amazing. I do not have the capacity nor the bandwidth to be able to take bulleted lists and create things for people. I'm a free spirit. I'm a free bird. And so when I create, I kind of have to just, like a wild stallion, I just need to run and figure it out and, be free as I can be. And so you take that mentality, and in all of my 20s, think about a free bird, right? My spirit animal was like a bird or like a horse. wanting to be wild, but I couldn't find a job in graphic design. So I landed in a lot of retail stuff, tried to work my way up Target. I've done everything from serve ice cream to clean bathrooms to being a key holder at a clothing store. Like I've done so many different types of work. And so ultimately, when I became a teacher, my degree, I was able to get a temporary teaching certificate to teach K through 12th grade art at the public level. So I became an art teacher, middle school art teacher in Orlando. And that was really the first time that, I had a studio space, because my classroom also came with a studio space. So I started painting and creating there, taking on commissions. I started doing the Comic-Con, like comic convention scene. That opened up my mind, and it just like expanded my bandwidth so much to what could be done and how money could be made and generated from artwork, because before then I really didn't know how to do it. I was knocking door to door at like sake bars and coffee shops and restaurants, trying to have my artwork hanging in restaurants and places like that, but to no avail. And so when I started teaching and started painting, I jumped into the comic convention scene big time. And so now I still do the comic convention scenes. I do mural work. I do a lot of commission work. I have an online store. So it's been cool, man. It's been a crazy ride. But I've been creating almost all of my life. As long as I can remember, I've always had a pencil or a paintbrush or a Sharpie or something in my hand, creating imagery.
Super cool. And so some of the murals that you've done, well, the murals that I've seen that you've done and your artwork in general is just absolutely amazing. And
Thank you.
I'm actually reminded of a story that hopefully you don't mind sharing, about how someone in your past wasn't actually so encouraging of your art and was actually telling you not to do art. Would we be able to expand on that story?
Yeah, no, I think what you're referring to is when I was kind of glazing over some of my college career. And when I jumped into that 4,000 level class, for me, I knew that painting was elementary. I had never done that before. I had never experimented with that before. And I remember being in that class, and the professor was just the best way to explain it was just so critical. I was a middle school art teacher. Of course, middle school is way, way, way different than college professing, being a professor at a college level. I get it. But at an educator level, at a teacher level, at a mentor level, I believe that there has to be something to be said about mentoring and teaching and guiding with love and empathy and with an open heart and an open mind. I think that being critical, it has its place when you are maybe on the critique floor, on critique day when you're doing those things. But I just remember this professor would just drill into me and, talk to me about my artwork, because I was very much so inspired by words. So I would always draw and paint words with my imagery. It was just a part of it. And I just remember she was not having it. We drew a line in the sand, and it was really one of those things where she was sharing with me, hey, artwork does not need to be represented or does not need to stand beside or be accompanied by words. Your imagery should be the telltale story. And in my mind, I thought to myself, I don't agree with that at all. Like whatsoever. I have always looked at art as subjective. I have always looked at art as freedom. I have always looked at art as something that, like, however you express it, there's different levels of how you might paint for art's sake. You might be painting as an activist. You might be painting as a pop artist. You might be painting for a consumer. You might be painting for yourself. There's different levels to that. But I do think that there's a place where if somebody is telling you this is not the way to create art, there's just something, there is something unequivocally wrong about that. And as a teacher, I spent, almost 5 years as a teacher, even at a middle school level. When some of these kids, I had a lot of prodigies in my classes that didn't need any teaching. They all they needed was the space and the atmosphere to create. And I realized that, like, I could have been critical if I wanted to. I could have broken their drawings and their paintings and their sculptures and their maquettes and their 2D designs and their cutouts. I could have been supremely critical of all those things. But even with a rubric in my hand, there's still something to be said about the freedom of art in whatever form that you do it in. And so we met right there, with a line drawn in the sand. And that almost took me out of art completely. I remember being so discouraged, but I kept going. I ended up getting a C in her class. And I told myself, you know what? It doesn't matter. Like, that was the grade that she gave me. And I'm glad that I didn't quit. I'm glad that I didn't stop after the fact, because if not, I would not be anywhere where I am right now, at all.
Yeah, because your art is absolutely fantastic, and it's so crazy to me that anyone would tell you, not to do art and to stop, and also that your art is wrong, so to speak. Like, how,
Yeah.
first of all, I mean, that's kind of the opposite of the definition of art. Like, art is supposed to be, like you mentioned, like free expression. And I mean, someone sold that display with like the banana that was like taped, and it's like, that's not something that I would spend money on, but to each his own. If people see that as art, great, and that's the fun of art, is that it has no box.
Absolutely. Absolutely. It has no box at all. It's wide open. And that's why at the end of the day, and maybe we'll get into this conversation or not, but at the end of the day, people that are critical of your work and other artists that are against other artists and things of that nature, it's really silly. Like, at the end of the day, it is supremely silly for an artist to be critical, to be any kind of negative towards any kind of art. If it is constructive and helpful in regards to anatomy or helping them understand the figure, there's also something to be said about warranted and unwarranted constructive criticism. And so my thing is, when you open that door or you're sitting at that table and you're okay, artist to artist, or patron to artist, or collector to artist, or business woman or businessman to artist, or whatever, citizen of a city and artist, I think there's something to be said about warranted and unwarranted criticism, and constructive criticism. If the artist is asking for it, definitely give it. If he or she is asking for constructive criticism or help with how they could do better, or what's your opinion, give it. But a lot of times I'll be at shows and I'll be at Comic-Cons, and so much unwarranted and hurtful and critical, criticism. It's crazy. So, I'm glad that I didn't quit. I go back and I think about that time, my senior year of college, and it was definitely interesting. It was an interesting time for me. But I turned the corner and I kept going.
I'm so appreciative that you did, that you kept going, and I think that's really a testament to your drive and to your character. Because I wonder how many people too that this teacher turned off from, creating wonderful things. And actually, I remember this story about this lady who was an artist that, someone told her when she was like 5 or something that she was terrible at drawing. So for the longest time in her life, I think like up into maybe her 80s or her 90s, like she didn't draw and she
Wow.
didn't create. Yeah, and then I don't remember what turned things, but she started, creating, and it was like the most beautiful artwork ever. So it's, and especially in a teacher role, the teacher should really be guiding. And it's disappointing, because I've heard this story too with actually many other people too, where a teacher will say, that this person is a failure or not good or whatever, And that's the exact opposite of what a teacher should be doing. And I think that was actually said to Einstein as well, that he was like terrible at school and that he was going to be a failure. And it's like it's
Now look.
yeah, yeah, yeah. And so I think it's so important for people to be able to really push on through that. And I mean, unfortunately, sometimes not listen to your teachers if they're not being helpful and constructive, because that's not really being constructive.
No.
So I mean, that's just criticism. And the importance of being able to recognize too, when it's not actually you that they're criticizing, that it's something in them that they're not happy with and that they're laying on you. But it's tough when they're in that authority role, and especially when you're for a lot of kids, it's when they hear that young, it just really throws them off. But so anyway, I'm so glad that you were able to push through and that you did push through, because I love seeing your art. I'm gonna have to get some links too for people that are watching this video, so they can see how amazing your art is, your murals, I love your Star Wars stuff, all the cool stuff that you're doing. It's so fantastic, and the world would have definitely been missing out to not be able to see your art.
No, that means a lot, man. It really does mean a lot. Just because art at times can be polarizing. An artist can be polarizing, and then an artist's work, can be polarizing as well. And so uh, being a part of a podcast like this, to me, it's just very nice and refreshing, because there's times where you just kind of need to take a break. Even today, I'll share, and I don't mean to get too much on a tangent. I want to, keep it concise to what we're talking about, but it's all art related. And so, right now I'm on a time crunch, this mural that I'm working on, and it's going good, but I've run into some complications and some frustrations, because the wall is it's different than anything I've ever done before. And I'm actually using a lift. I'm about 20 to 25 feet in the air.
Wow.
And the tallest work I've done to date. I've done bigger work on the ground with my intersection. I did a intersection in Lake Wales, Florida. But in regards to going up, like into the sky, this is the highest that I've ever gone. So it is a little daunting. And so, but my mind's racing. There's, just like anybody else, you got tons of stuff going on in your life, and you're thinking about things, and everything from friendships and family to COVID to deadlines to everything, man. It's just a lot going on right now with life, with everybody. And but to be on a show like yours, and to be able to take 30 minutes, an hour, a few moments of both of our times, because time is so valuable, and for you to honor me with your time and to be here, and for it to be something so positive, it really means a lot, man. And I know this is kind of random, but I want to make sure that I put this in here. Thank you for who you are, and thank you for your book, and for any other publication you have or that you're going to create. And thank you for creating the podcast. I know that podcasts and any other type of media that you can attach to your platform and to your book is only going to draw more, garner more attention and more love for the kids that you're trying to help, for the adults you're trying to help. So yeah, I'm excited to be here on the podcast and being a part of your platform. It's a really good thing.
Wow. Well, thank you. And I'm super, super excited to have you on as well, because I think you are such an inspiration, and all the opportunities that I see you getting lately, and all the cool places that you're painting for. It's so inspiring, and your story is so inspiring with the teacher, and what we're going to get into very shortly too, about how you basically clawed your way up from the bottom. I think it's so inspiring, and and your character too, like you're doing all these cool murals like all over the place. I see it on Facebook all the time, like you're having all these like awesome adventures, but you're still so humble about it and so easy to talk to. and you're just really a true inspiration. And so that's why I'm so excited to have you on. And it's this is all a real treat for me.
Oh, thank you so much. While you're talking, it's interesting. My studio actually has a light that goes on and off. I need to turn it back on because it's kind of dark in here real quick. Let me make sure I can turn it back on. Sorry about this. This is
Sounds
really,
good. I thought it was like a cool artifact.
yeah. Okay, cool. Like I'll like, if I'm not moving around, I don't know, it'll turn off, but it might happen again in a little bit. But sorry about that. What was the last thing you said?
It was kind of a cool effect. It was like really interesting. It's kind of just like you entered a different dimension or something.
Yeah, I got all this black light. What if I had like black light artwork on my walls? That would have been crazy.
That would have. I love too how you have the studio in the back too. Like all it looks like a lot of different painting supplies and everything. It's so neat.
Oh yeah, that's it right there. That's that space right there is where I paint. I call that my dirty space. I mean, the whole studio at this point turned into a dirty space. I try my best to have a dirty space and a clean space. So, an area that's easier to ship and to make, if I have guests or if I have a client that wants to come in and talk, I try my best to do that. But man, it's so hard because I have such a beautiful space here at Workspace Collective. It's in downtown Ocala. Shameless plug for them. They're really amazing. And so I have a studio here inside of their amazing facility. And it's cool because I'm actually the only like dirty space in the entire facility, because the majority of the people that are here, they're like a real estate agency, they're a brokerage, they're mortgage broker, or they're an accountant, or they might be like a marketing firm or something. So a lot of clean space happening, and then you go all the way to the back and you have this crazy artist throwing paint all over the walls.
That's so cool.
It's different. I appreciate that. It's definitely different. It's a different vibe here at Workspace Collective.
I was thinking, I don't want to go too off topic, but well, I guess it's not really off topic, but I'm kind of kicking myself a little bit for not asking if we could do a tour at some point. So maybe that'll be a video for the future, because I think it'd be really great to see you in action and get to see your gallery, because you're just doing so much cool stuff. And for me, my art ability is stick figures. And
Mm-hmm.
so when I can see someone that is so talented and doing so much cool stuff, it's just so inspiring. Like when someone can do something really well that I struggle with, like to me, that's like it just makes it so much more exciting.
Yeah, no, I appreciate that. I feel the same way. It's cool. I do that. I mean, I do that with a lot of different people, whether it's an author or like a chef, or I don't know, somebody that builds things. Like the one thing that really blows my mind are like carpenters, like people that work with wood. I have a friend of mine, his name's Paul Brown. Shout out to Paul Brown with Bombay Customs. And he does a lot of woodwork, and he actually creates like wooden rings, handmade. And it's just an interesting process, like just the process of making a ring out of wood. Like,
Yeah.
so, I don't know. It's just cool. People just do really cool things. They create really cool things and things that I can't make. And so another thing is like 3D printing. I got a friend of mine that's been getting into a lot of 3D printing, and it's just really incredible to see what can be made from a 3D printer. It's really cool.
Yeah, it's incredible. It's like you made this with a printer, you know. It's so neat too. Yeah, because a lot of times like those are just like like the 3D models that are in the modeling software, and then they're real.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah.
Super cool. Well, I am dying to get into into the the story of you essentially rising from the ashes. So this is actually a story that I've been waiting to hear for months now, ever since you mentioned it on another podcast, because to me, I think it is one of the most inspiring things ever to be kind of on the down and out and not give up, and to essentially rise from the ashes and become successful, and just really start crushing it. So
Yeah.
if you'd be willing to share that story, I would love to hear it.
Absolutely. to kind of to build context, I'll try my best to keep it concise and build a little bit of context before I get to the nitty gritty. I pretty much crash landed in Ocala, Florida. I lived in Orlando. I went to school at UCF, and I lived in Orlando for 17 years. And Orlando is like becoming a little New York City. Man, it is expensive to live there. And so ultimately that's really what it was. The money pushed me out. And at this point I have been doing full-time artwork for, man, we're going on maybe 4 years. So I'm going 3 to 4 years full time, and everything's good. And I incur a very like interesting like eye injury that even now the optometrist, when I went, they couldn't put their finger on it. They didn't know what it was. And so during that time, I had a whole month where my left eye was light sensitive, and I couldn't go outside. The lights had to be turned off all the time, and I wasn't able to work. And so literally thousands upon thousands of dollars that I had to refund because my eye got hurt, and they weren't able to find out what it was. But after about a month's time, they were kind of trying different medicines, different like gels and drops for my eye. And after about a month, it finally cleared up and went away. And that is what really propelled this like really crazy downward, fast-paced spiral. I had no money. I was struggling a lot. My car at the time was about to blow up. I couldn't afford my apartment. Just so many things. I was in the red a lot, and I was trying to dig my way out then, and I couldn't do it. I lost my apartment. My car ended up getting, blowing up from the inside, like oil everywhere. The transmission blew or something crazy. I had to get a new car, or, I had to get another car. Back then, I was just on top of that, on top of already being down and out, I was making a lot of bad decisions. And I can, on this, I want to be able to share the whole story because hopefully this can help somebody, inspire somebody. I was making a lot of bad choices and decisions in regards to money. So on top of me already having to refund money, any money that was coming in after the fact, I wasn't spending it properly. And because I was so scared of the used car that I had blowing up on me, I decided, and the wisdom that I had at the time, to get a brand new car, even though I couldn't really afford it. And so I was like, you know what, I'm going to get a brand new car. This way I don't have to worry about it. I don't have to worry about, the transmission blowing up or something happens or whatever. So that was my reasoning. So I bought a brand new car. The payments were like astronomical, just because my credit wasn't good. And at this point, I had a car, but I didn't have an apartment because I couldn't keep my apartment. And so I ended up moving to, it was Tampa. And so I moved to Tampa. This kind of began a very short string of like sleeping on couches, trying to figure it out. Found a place to stay in Tampa. That was very short lived. My roommate was actually very like verbally abusive and really weird. And I didn't really know him that well. He was like he was a referred friend of a friend. So my friend referred him. Hey, this guy's a nice guy. He has a company. He's willing to barter your artwork for a place to stay. So we tried that for a little bit. It didn't work out. After that, I came to Ocala. So like I was in Tampa trying to live, do my thing. And then I ended up being in Ocala. I didn't want to go back home because I knew like back home, where I grew up, there's really nothing there. I love that place to death, but it's amazing. Sorry. But in regards to art and really trying to make a name for yourself with art, it just wasn't a place that wasn't conducive for an artistic career. So I was like, I need to stay in Central Florida because I'm close to Orlando. I need to stay close to Orlando, close to Tampa, close to Lakeland, you know, close to Miami. I need to be somewhere central where I can branch out. And so I had a couple friends in Ocala. They let me sleep on their couch. I slept on a couch for like 3 weeks, and then ultimately found another roommate, and that roommate didn't work out. Like literally, it was just like a string of just like really not good events in my life. And it was like repetitive over and over again. At that time, I was like, okay, I got to take control of something. Like, this isn't good. I gotta be able to take control of something. And so the same amount of rent that I was paying, you know, to rent a room was the same amount that I could pay for my gallery. So I made a decision. I'm going to go ahead and get my gallery. I'm going to pay for the gallery, and I'm going to live out of the gallery. So I ended up living out of the gallery, between the gallery and my car. And that began, I would say, I mean, I don't even, at this point, I don't remember. It was probably about a good 3 to 5 months, maybe around that time, that I was living out of the gallery, out of my car, like literally trying to find places to shower. I had friends that would let me shower at their place. If that didn't work out, then I would literally take showers with baby wipes in my bathroom. The gallery had a bathroom, so I had a back room. I was living out of the back room, showing out of the front room, showing artwork in the front room, living in the back room, and then literally, you know, baby wipes, showering, the days that I couldn't find a shower, which were many. And then, you know, I guess I mean, in retrospect, you know, hindsight's always 2020. I could have gotten like a gym membership and shout out the gym. I've heard of stories like that too, but I wasn't really thinking about that. And then in the middle of all of that, I lost my car. My car got repossessed because I couldn't pay for it anymore. And so my car got repossessed, and it was just a crazy, crazy time. And during that time, I was really down and out. I didn't know what to do. I kind of just gave up on my art. And it wasn't until, and this to me, this story has more to do with having very strong friendships in your life than it is like a redemption story, or like, I don't know, like a light at the end of the tunnel type thing. Like, to me, the reason why I was able to climb out of my homelessness was because I had really good friends that believed in me and told me to keep making artwork, to keep pushing forward. And then ultimately I had a friend that was like, hey, I have an extra room. If you want it, I can kind of tell. It was almost like he didn't want to ask me. I made a really good friend, and he didn't want to ask me if I was living out of the gallery. But one day because every time, you know, he'd come pick me up or whatever to like hang out, because at the time I didn't have a car. Anytime that we would hang out to go get something to eat or whatever, watch a movie or something, I'd always ask him to drop me off at the gallery. And I think he, you know, of course, put two and two together. And then finally he was like, hey, are you homeless? And I just remember at that time having to be so humble and having to answer that question. Nobody before then had asked me that question. You know, are you homeless? And I was like, yeah, yes, I am. And I was in my own denial. I was in my own headspace with that. And he helped me get out of that. So like, it was really cool. Really spoke life into me. It was really a big iron sharpens iron. He had an extra room in his house that he let me, you know, stay out of. And he was like, hey, whenever you're ready to pay rent, whenever that's time, then you let me know. And it really was because of that friendship and because of that almost mentoring, and really, and I wasn't going to say his name just because I know him. He doesn't ever want any kind of anything, but it is my bro, Daniel Gray. He's an amazing dude. And honestly, if it wasn't for him seeing somebody that was down and out and seeing somebody that was hurting and say, you know what, I'm gonna help this guy. Like he's a good dude, but you know, you could tell that he's just not in the right place, and maybe I can help him. And it had to do with my mentality, you know, like how I was living my day to day. And so many days I would try to do art, and I would try to figure it out, and I would try my hardest, but I would always be in my own head. I can't speak for everybody that's homeless. I can't, you know, everybody's situation is different. But what I will say is this, you know, if you have people in your life that are willing to help or that are strong, like keep those people around. Keep those people in your life that'll help build you up. We always have a decision that we can make in regards to the kind of people that we choose to be around. But in my life, like I started making decisions that the people that I want to be around are people that are going to help build me up. They're going to sharpen my iron. And even in my state of homelessness, they understood my situation, but they still helped to build me up. And, you know, of course, everybody's not going to be in a place where they can say, hey, I have a friend that's homeless. I have an extra room. Not everybody has that opportunity. And I understand that. But I do believe that everybody has an opportunity to build somebody up, to be that person. You know, we talk about superheroes, right? I believe that in our own lives, we have the opportunity to be a superhero to somebody, to someone. It could be a family member. It could be your best friend. It could be your boyfriend, girlfriend, wife, husband, uncle. We have the opportunity to be a superhero to somebody. And I thank God that God blessed me with a superhero. His name's Daniel Gray, and he helped me. Like, he helped me tremendously. And now today, I can say that I have a roof over my head. I'm able to help out to pay rent. I'm painting murals everywhere. My business is now, you know, successful and booming again. But it was a year of not good, of trials and tribulations and being in a valley. And I don't really share this story a lot, but it's really at the core, it was a very dark and hurtful place, a very lonely place. And so my prayer goes out to anybody that's homeless or is facing homelessness or knows somebody that's homeless. My heart goes out to them. And I understand like what it feels like to not really know when your next shower is going to be, to not know how you're going to get somewhere, like even to Walmart, even to get something to eat. Like I walked a lot, you know, and I had another good friend, Andres Garcia. He would call me, you know, because the one thing that I was able to do was keep my phone on, which I appreciate so much, man. Like I thank God that I was able to sell enough art to keep my gallery going and to keep my phone turned on. I was still able to call people, contact people, you know, ask for help if I needed it. But the people that were on the other line were definitely people that cared about me and loved me. And so my prayer is like, for people that are in the situation, you might have to be the person to love and to support in order to attract people in your life that are going to do the same for you. Because there's many people that say, you know, I really don't have a lot of friends, or I don't trust the friends that I have, or I don't know if my friends will do that for me. I don't know who needs to hear this, but I feel very led and compelled to say this. There might be somebody right now listening or watching this podcast that you're wondering, you know, why you don't have any friends, or why people are not around you or don't care to be around you. Sometimes we have to start to be that person in order to attract those people in our life. And I'm glad that I was able to humble myself and become that person for a big season of my life, because it attracted friendships that are long lasting. It attracted friendships that, are people, are human beings that truly care and want me to stand on my own too and succeed. And so I battled homelessness for like it was like 3 to 5 months. It was very blurry, but I'd say about 3 to 5 months. And that was like during the height of COVID. It was crazy. Just a lot of crazy stuff. But yeah, that's the story in a nutshell. I mean, it's definitely longer than any other opportunity that I've had to share about my homelessness. But I want it to be a positive thing, because I know homelessness can usually be a very negative thing and a hurtful thing. But I want to be able to utilize my story and my testimony to help somebody else out, because I know how hurtful it can be, how lonely it can be.
Wow. Thank you so much. There's a lot to unpack with all that. You gave some amazing insight. I don't even know quite where I want to start. Well, actually, I do know where I want to start. Well, first of all, I completely agree with what you're talking about, with how we can be a superhero to other people, at this moment. Like, even just simply being in someone else's corner, I'm sure that, even the people that, maybe couldn't help you out with a room, that were even just encouraging you, that were in your corner, didn't give up on you.
Yeah,
I'm sure that alone meant a lot.
absolutely. Absolutely. Because it's a fight. During that time for me, it was a fight for my mental health, and staying positive and having people around me to build me up when I was sad or down or lonely. It was a big deal. And so, yeah, so people definitely can be superheroes, and you don't need money. You don't need anything but your heart, for sure.
Yeah, and it doesn't take much. Just like you were talking about, it doesn't take much. Just showing someone that you care about them succeeding can
Yeah,
make all the difference.
absolutely.
One of the reasons why your story, to me, was so important and so important to share is that I came across some stat that, I don't know, I think it was like 60 or 70% of Americans have, maybe like $500 or less in their bank account. And to me, that was just absolutely staggering.
Yeah,
I mean, that's like one bad week away from honestly being homeless and starting that downward spiral. Because
yeah,
once that spiral happens, it is so hard to pull out of it, and it's so hard to see any kind of light at the end of the tunnel. Um, and so, the fact that you were able to, get out of that, and how you got out of it, I think that's such an important story to share with everyone.
thank you. Yeah, I didn't know that number. That number is staggering, and I think the more people, and I say that this would be more so in friend groups. I don't think you should, you know, publicize that in Facebook or anything. Like, hey, I'm one paycheck away from being homeless, but I think there is a power in sharing that kind of sensitive information with your closest friends. Um, because at the end of the day, all of us are hurting and dealing with hurt and trauma in different ways. I mean, we're talking family abuse, like historical generational family abuse. We're talking financial, neglect and mental health. I mean, there's so many different variations of trauma and PTSD and hurt and internal and ill mental health. Like, and I personally didn't think about going into this conversation heavily talking about mental health, but it's a big thing. It's a real thing. Um, and I just feel like so many people don't talk about it, and many people are afraid of therapy and counseling, and like we're living in a state right now, like a day and age right now, in an era, you know I don't want to get, political. It's not even about getting political with COVID. It's just kind of talking about the byproducts of COVID. The byproducts of COVID are, isolation. Whether you've had COVID or not, whether you've been in a hospital room with COVID or you've been at home with COVID. At this point, I'm not talking about vaccinated or unvaccinated or anything of that nature. I'm talking about if and when you get it. I had it last Christmas, and I remember I had it. My mom, I believe she got a false negative, but we both had COVID at her house when I went home to, take care of her, see her for Christmas. And it was crazy how isolated and how alone and lonely I felt with my mom in the same house. And so I just feel like whether it's COVID or homelessness or trauma, your family passed or whatever, a big part of it to me has to do with mental health, having people around you that are going to build you up and help you steer you in the right direction. And that's everybody's right direction is different. In my case, my right direction has everything to do with God and prayer and whatnot. And I'm not here to judge, or I'm not here to put my religion on anybody, but everybody has their own right direction, and everybody has their friends that'll help point them in that right direction. And for me, as long as it's not illegal, you know what I'm saying? Like my heart and prayer is for everybody to be steered in the right direction. Because mental health is such a big thing. And it's a part of my story, because that breakdown started when I had my eye injury, and it was a downward slope financially and mentally. And it wasn't until 2 to 3 years later, surrounding myself with people that were helping my heart state and helping my mental state. It wasn't until I intentionally surrounded myself with very beautiful, loving people internally, like people that are beautiful on the inside, that they were willing to hold my hand and grab my arm and pull me out of the trenches. That's what it takes. I believe that's what it takes. And so my story, we're talking about superheroes. Like when you think about a superhero, like there have been so many moments where I've literally seen that imagery, whether in a comic book or in a movie, somebody literally lifting somebody out of the rubble, dodging, helping them move out of the way of a train or a moving bus or a semi truck, standing in front of somebody because they're bulletproof, but the person they're protecting is not bulletproof. Like that is literally the story of a superhero, because you're a hero, but the super is what takes it to the next level. And so I don't, it's just really cool. Like, I just think it's really cool that a foundation of what you do has to do with being a superhero. It's very profound.
I think what you just said is so profound as well. And I really appreciate you sharing all this. And because one thing that came to mind too is, like you're talking about, like the superhero protecting someone from the bus. Sometimes it's not always, the physical bus. Sometimes it's the mental bus.
Yes.
It's because it's actually really interesting too that you mentioned Daniel Gray, because Daniel Gray was actually scheduled for the show, and he wasn't feeling well, and so
Yeah.
we'd like to definitely going to try to get him on, because he was actually a superhero to me as well. And
Wow.
Not to go too into the story, but it was actually my first time meeting him. But I had a certain someone in my life at that time that was not behaving in a way that was making sense to anyone
Yeah.
else that was around. And so Dan saw that I was a little down in the dumps, and he made sure that I had a great day. Like he took me under his wing, and just met him, and so him just going out of that way, it meant the world to me. And like, and it wasn't, and like, it meant a lot to me. Like it was the world to me, but for him, as far as energy requirement, like it wasn't a lot, it was just, like, hey, like, he actually shared stories that he had of, like rough situations that were similar to what I was experiencing. And he's like, and he made sure that, that I was invited to volleyball. So we played volleyball together. And
Yeah.
just that little care goes such a long way, and saved me from that mental bus that was kind of just like pressing on me, so to speak. um and there's an idea that we're the average of the five people that we spend the most time with. And
Yes.
it's something that's a concept that I play with a lot, and I think it really speaks to the importance of boundaries and learning how to establish boundaries, which I'm still working on myself. But I think you really alluded to it, like with how much we're getting barraged with all these different things that are coming at us. And then
Yeah.
when we have people in our life too that aren't lifting us up, or and kind of bringing that down, it's just like an added dimension that doesn't help. um and I kind of love the effect of the light.
I know I wasn't gonna get up this time while you were talking because you're talking deep. So I was like, I mean, I'll wait. Hopefully he didn't notice that the light went off again.
I love this conversation. I think everything that you're speaking on is so important. And um I'm not even quite sure what are all the great directions to go on it, because you're really speaking volumes. And I well, let's talk about with COVID too, like even just the social isolation for me. So I'm basically an introverted person. Some people would argue that I'm not introverted at all, but I consider myself pretty introverted. And so I thought with the social isolation that, it wouldn't really be much of a problem at all. Like I'm used to like doing stuff on my own. And
Yeah.
I've realized as we've kind of come back to a little bit more normalcy that socializing is actually really tough. That I've really had to bring the social muscle back. And so I can only imagine how it is for people that are used to like going out and like really being around a lot of people and you
Yeah.
know, you know extroverts. So I think that you really spoke to a lot of people with that. And that it's maybe something that's not being addressed enough. And how important it is for us to be good to each other. And in my book, the number one way to be a superhero is just simply to say hi to people. And you're really making me think I need to do more of a push of getting that message out there, because if we can say even just hi to each other, that will help, I think, um, with that isolation that we've all felt for such a long time.
Yeah.
Just that connectedness, like I think there's been such a lack of connectedness. And that's actually one thing that I appreciate about doing these Zoom podcasts, because I kind of realized how disconnected I was from so many people, and so many people that are important to me, and including you. Like we only met that one day before, but we've talked and interacted on Facebook for a bit. And
Yeah.
even with that one interaction, I had such a good feeling about you. And I mean, you were so supportive of me out of the gate too, and it was just so appreciated. And you're such a positive influence. And so that connection I really appreciate.
No, man, absolutely. And I know I'm excited. I think and I appreciate you giving, honoring me with your platform. And I I know that we're here live, and I hopefully I'm not imposing, but I'd love to do a part two with you, to really even take this episode and maybe dive deeper, because I can talk about this for so long, but I think chewable chunks. I think chewable chunks are appropriate, you know, and I hope that somebody, I really do hope and pray that somebody that needs this is listening, you know, that they're watching this. Because at the end of the day, like for me, and it's hard because I don't want to get emotional. I get emotional at times thinking about this because I feel like I know that everybody was created with a purpose. And when I'm on shows like yours, when I'm allowed to talk about, because I've been on shows where, you know, I get rules and regulations and of course, like, cussing and things like that. I've been on, that's different. Because and I don't really cuss anyway, or things like that, but or certain topics cannot be discussed, which I don't, my thing is like shows that allow the person to expound on their heart, because there's already a particular trust that you give a guest for being on your show. That's first of all. And then you allow that person to share and expound on their heart. That's really big. And so like when I'm in these kind of zones, because I've been in shows that have a lot of parameters, a lot of boundary markers and and things like that. But with this show, I just really felt so free. I mean, I actually have never talked about or talked about mental health and its importance, even though that's in my heart of hearts, because that is a big part of my testimony and my story. But like the fact that I'm able to do that and talk about that here on your show, it's just is really exciting. This is where I'm understanding my purpose. And even as I'm talking right now, I'm sharing with anybody watching or listening, you have a purpose. Like you have a purpose. You were created with a purpose. Everybody was designed differently. We are all a puzzle piece in this world, and we all interlock. I believe we all interlock in one way or another. But the thing is, it's like my hope and prayer for anybody watching or listening to this episode is that you leave asking yourself, what is my purpose in life? Number one, everybody has purpose. Number two, I believe everybody is a superhero. You can be a superhero to one person. You don't have to be a superhero to a multitude. Nobody ever said that. But if every single person in the world was a superhero to at least one person, man, this world would already immediately in one day, in 1 hour, become better if every single human was a superhero to one person. And yeah, I hope that we get to do a part 2, because there's really so much more, there's so much more to talk about. And thank you for letting me talk about my homelessness and share my heart on mental health and the importance of really taking time to understand our own mental health and what we need to do to help it if we need help.
Yeah, I see we're getting a little bit up there in time, and I want to make sure that you have time to get back to your mural. But two quick things that I think are so important to add on to that are you're talking about like everyone has a purpose, everyone has gifts to give. That's like I really appreciate you saying that, because it helped me really remember why this show is so important to me, because I think it's so important for people to be able to find what their superpowers are, because everyone has superpowers. And that's the very first part of my book, is that, everyone has real life superpowers. What are they? And you talked about, that if you're even just a superhero to one person, that it can make a big difference. I couldn't agree more. And I think the perfect example is how Daniel was a superhero to you. And and that butterfly effect of how like even just helping one person can help so many more people, because then that person helps other people, and it just branches out. And
Yes.
with Daniel just helping you, I got to meet you, and the world gets to see all your amazing art, all your amazing murals, all your amazing paintings. And so many people are benefited just from Dan helping you. You know what I mean? Like just that little bit just influence so many people in such a positive way. Yeah, I think that's fantastic.
No, for sure, man. For sure. It's a great conversation, and I can't wait to continue it. This
Awesome.
is really good.
Yeah, we definitely need to have a part two, and I'm so excited to rewatch this interview because we really went deep. Like we hit some so important points, and I think the mental health issue too is something that isn't talked about enough,
Yeah.
and it's really at the core of so many things. Like what could be more core to people than their mental health, because that's the one thing that you're always surrounded with. Like
Yes.
if you're not okay in your own head, then like what else do you have? You know what I mean? It really starts there. And so I just want to say thank you so much for sharing your story. Thank you so much for taking the time out of your insanely busy day to to come talk to us. And thank you for everything that you do, and for just being such an inspiration in so many ways. I didn't even get to dive into how like all of your superpowers that but so we're definitely gonna have to do a part two. I want to see the gallery.
Yeah.
um just thank you so much for being you, and for being such an inspiration, and for being such a good human being and so good to other people.
Thank you, man. That means a lot, brother. And thank you, man, for who you are, what you've created, what you're going to continue to create, and the lives that you've inspired. Thank you for that. It's an honor and a privilege to be on your show, and I can't wait for part two.
All right, thank you so much.
Yeah, man.
Audience, audience, thank you so much for watching. I hope you have a great day and a great every day, and I can't wait for us to do part two and check in with him again. All right, thanks, take care.